Hi, everyone. So nice to connect with you again. And I do apologize. This was going to be a live recording so that you could be with me and ask me questions and we could have a bit more of a real conversation. But unfortunately, the weather that is expected tomorrow in Australia is a little bit crazy. And I'm worried that the internet actually wouldn't even be working. So I took a punt and I thought, you know what, I'm going to record it now and then I can just upload it and I don't have to change any time slots or anything like that. So I do apologize, but that's the weather in Australia has been absolutely, yeah, really crazy. I think it has been everywhere, but that's just what's happening here for the time being. I am in Australia for the next, well, at least until mid-April, and then back in the US. So I will be doing a few different things, integration sessions and a few more catch-ups in different time zones, obviously. So anyway, I was really, I guess my email that I just sent out last week was really, or just a few days ago, sorry, was really something that was urged to me. I realized I was offering these integration sessions, and yet I hadn't actually shared anything about my own self as to the process that I went through last year. For anyone who's new to following me or doesn't know what I'm talking about, I went to Peru last year for 3 months, and I finished end of October. So I've been kind of in integration mode, November, December, January, February, 4 months now. Wow, Peru feels like a long time ago. It's going very fast. Anyway, and I really felt the need to share with you what that experience was like. I know there are so many people, wanting to experience either psychedelics or do more in the healing process, or simply work with perhaps an energy healer or a shaman, in a sense of, when I say plant medicine, there's two versions to that, right? Okay, so plant medicine can be psychedelic, and it can be things like, ayahuasca, mushrooms, wachuma or San Pedro, but it can also actually be plants. And I learned so much more about actual plants and how they can really heal in so many different ways. And again, when I say heal, I want to say change something about your body or alter a balance in your body or take away or bring alignment back to your body for whatever space that's in. It's not like this miracle healing concept that something was wrong with you one day and you take this medicine and then the next day you're completely healed. So I just want to clarify that, especially on the fact that I'm putting this on YouTube. I'm not professing that, there's some miracle cures or anything like that. Also, that, I'm not suggesting that you don't see doctors for things. But what I do want to say is that what I learned, and I'll get back to why I went to the jungle in a minute. Sorry, this is going to be all over the place. This is just how my brain works. So what I do want to get back to is that what I learned that was so profound was that plants, vegetables, all sorts of beings, not just the plants, but the medicine from animals. I had so many medicines that were introduced to me in the jungle for different reasons that would not necessarily give me an effect. It wasn't like there was some, kind of, what am I trying to say, trance effect. It was more that it would bring back the medicine of the animal or the plant would help in a different way for whatever it was that I was going through. And this is profound. I mean, this is known to very many people. There are many people already practicing plant medicine in that way. But I'm bringing it forward in this space because I'm going to be using the terms plant medicine a lot. And I just wanted to kind of clarify with you that I'm not always talking about psychedelic medicine. And also that this huge movement towards psychedelics, which is fantastic because they are very helpful, is also something that needs to bring, obviously, its own warnings and being careful. So, and it's not always that it's the only way to break through with healing. So I just want to kind of say all that about some of the terminology that I use. I also want to say, especially for those of you who haven't seen any of my videos before, you know, I'm not here to oppose any particular belief system. I'm not rigid in any kind of belief system. I have my own truths that I believe to be true because of my experience and what I've been shown and what I've seen and what I've felt and what I've heard and what my spirit team kind of helped me with. But outside of that, you know, when I'm talking about, you know, previous lives or anything like that, I'm not in any way trying to say that that's the only way. I know many people have different forms of, you know, what they believe in, and I really believe that there's truth to everything, that it's not anything that is particularly rigid, and that actually helps me to just be able to listen to people and understand that what is true to a certain person is their truth. And if that's what's working for them, then that's great. Anyway, I felt there was just a need to just put that somewhere as I go into my conversation about my story in the jungle and the healing that I received. Because it's kind of a big story and has taught me a lot about our energetic bodies. So I'll just go back a little bit. So yeah, I went into the jungle. Now, I didn't go randomly to someone. I went to someone who I had already met before and had, even though it was only a short space of time, I had a really profound experience with him. That's the shaman, Maestro Herberto Garcia. He's actually known as an Onanya, which is to date the highest form. There are Marias, or were Marias, I should say, which was actually the highest form in the Shipibo culture. However, there aren't any known surviving Marias at the moment. Well, yeah, at the moment. And Maestro Herberto was, it was his great-grandfather it was his grandfather, sorry, who was a Maria and who taught Herberto. So, and there are a number of Onanyas still in the Shipibo culture. But it's like anything. You can learn and go to a certain stage in mastery or in a field, and it will still be who you are as a person that brings the most to that experience, to that to that person. And I'm saying that because a lot of people, now that they are coming into this kind of psychedelic world, are very quick to dismiss certain people in certain fields based on their cultural background or what level they think they're at and all this kind of stuff. I personally have learnt to put a bit of that aside. I used to be very cut and dry with that myself. But since my experience in the jungle, I have learnt that the medicine, that the energy of the person is probably what is the most important. The humbleness of the person is what's most important. The values, the reason why they do what they do, that all comes through in the person that you sit and take medicine with. And I have learnt that, and Herberto Maestro taught me that there is a lot of darkness out there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who will be serving medicine that, you know, aren't aware of the energies and the things that they need to keep safe. This has been a very strong message in any of my videos, and most people who have been following me know that I'm very particular about the safety of energy and who you sit with, and making sure that you choose really well energetically, and with someone who has experience in keeping you safe in that field. Okay, I'm going to try not to keep digressing. I'm just going to have a water. So my intention going into the jungle was to do the first 3 months of training. I really just wanted to get into a practice for myself. It was for my own personal growth. My idea of where I was at healing was that I had kind of, you know, done released a lot. I had released a lot of energies over the last, I don't know what it was then, 7 or 8 years or something. Um, uh, and I kind of felt like, I probably shouldn't really have too much stuff left. I mean, I've really done a lot of purging and gone through lots of really dark stuff, and not really knowing a lot of the reasons as to how I came about all this stuff, but it was just kind of, this is what needs to come out. And I have lots of stories about all of those things. There's some in my other videos as well. Particularly the one about when I released the alcohol spirit, which was amazing. So again, the reason why I went into the jungle was because I wanted to learn more about the practice and the ritual, and learning more about my energy body, learning more about creating safe space, and how to, really, I guess, see and feel the energy and know what to do when I had to remove things. So that was the goal. It's always good to have goals. And it's kind of funny because, we always say have an intention, and then sometimes you go and practice medicine and the intention just gets taken right out the window. And I mean that because often we don't know what we really need. We think we know what we need, but we really don't know what we need. And it can be on so many deeper levels. So the first probably 5 to 6 weeks, it was kind of cruisy in the sense that it wasn't as challenging as I thought it was going to be. We were taking medicine, 3 or 4 times, like ayahuasca medicine 3 or 4 times a week. So that's a lot of medicine. And it was, the idea is not a lot for me, but the idea was to just practice being able to be mindful whilst you're also experiencing the medicine. That wasn't happening for me. I was still doing lots of little purging and getting really frustrated that I was just constantly still bringing up lots of stuff. Now, I want to go back a little piece here. When I first sat down with Maestro Roberto, he said to me, he did his diagnostics and he was reading my energy, and he said, you still have a little bit of healing to do. And I was like, oh, okay. He said, but that's okay. We'll do that first, because healing and training is kind of 2 different things. There's the healing that, obviously you need to be a healed, clean person to be able to help other people, right? That's very important. Energetically more than anything. So I was like, oh, okay. He said, yeah. And the way he explained it to me, which I think is really important as an understanding of our energy bodies, and I've obviously learned more since then, but this is just the easiest way to explain it. We have layers of energetic bodies. Now, they can be referred to in a whole range of different ways. I'm not talking simply about our aura. Our aura is one thing, but then there are also the different layers of spiritual bodies. And it kind of all lines up with our chakras and everything else. The thing is, though, there's like, how much did he say? 7 or 9? I think there's 9 in the ethereal, but we don't really go there. 7 definitely we have. And the first and second spiritual layer of spiritual body is what's closest to us physically, and would be really considered what needs to, what we feel the most if it's feeling really clogged. Externally to that, our other layers are where all sorts of different energies can sit, all sorts of different toxicities from different lifetimes, from a whole range of things. This is such a big conversation that it's difficult to kind of just give you snippets of it. I feel like I'm going to have to do maybe a workshop or something. Because I realize I keep kind of pulling in for some of this conversation. Anyway, so what he said to me was, your first and second spiritual body are really clean, which is what I've been working on all these years. But your third and fourth have a level of toxicity that needs to come out because it will affect you and it will manifest physically, which is a really key point that I want you to remember, because I'll come back to that. Otherwise, I'll sidetrack. So anyway, This was about the fifth week, and sorry, he gave me the diagnosis at the beginning, and then by the fifth or sixth week, I was getting really frustrated, really frustrated. So remembering that you're in the jungle to detox from everything. You think that it's detoxing from your caffeine and your sugars and whatever that aren't available there, but you're actually detoxing from your entire life, because the Wi-Fi there is limited. There's no electricity. Well, there's electricity at nighttime, but a little bit. There's no kind of, you're in the jungle. You're in a bungalow in the jungle, and the jungle is and you're detoxing from the creature comforts that you would have at home. A lot of people struggled with the heat. They would just automatically assume there was air conditioning, and it's like, well, there's no air conditioning. And I found it really liberating. I found it really good for me, because you could just sweat things out. You could just deal with it. It would be cool at night, which was great. And there's always a place to cool off. But I actually love that about the jungle, but you don't realize that you're detoxing from everything until you're kind of there for a little bit, and you're like, okay, it's not just the coffee and the sugar or the food things that people automatically think detox. They think food. It's lifestyle, right? And it's not having your phone, plugged in all the time. And they're all wonderful things. I believe they are. It was just fantastic, and I loved it. But by week 6, I was really struggling, not just with the detox. I was actually fine with that. I was fine with the not having the creature comforts. I'd kind of gotten used to that. But what I was struggling with was feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere with anything, with the training. I wasn't feeling an awful lot better. And what was really upsetting me or frustrating me was that every time I took medicine, I would be sick. I would be purging. Not big ones, but just medium purges. And for those who don't know, I don't know how much. I know I have a range of people who follow me, but ayahuasca is a known purgatory is a known I don't know the word now except purgatory. A known makes you vomit, right? But it's not vomiting because you don't eat before you do the ceremony. It's you're purging energy. I mean, sometimes there is stuff there, but you're purging energy. So that sounds really weird if you haven't experienced it. And it's quite a relief, but it's also exhausting. Anyway, and for me, I can always see what it is that I'm purging. I don't know whether I found out that not a lot of people do that, but I can see what it is. And it's always awful. Like, it's not pleasant stuff at all. They're always not very pleasant entities. And I was kind of like, when is this going to end? Like, how can I be full of all these horrible entities? Like, what does that even mean? So I eventually I ended up having to talk to Maestro, because I was considering coming home, and it wasn't a part of me. I'm not someone who would necessarily want to not finish something, but it was a part of me. There was the inner child of me that wanted to run away and hide, and so this is getting too hard. And I feel like on the other part to that was I'd just broken out in this huge rash, this big red rash. So I didn't know what was going on. So I spoke to Maestro, and I was basically saying, I don't think I can keep doing this. He was very serious with me, and he said, this was just a few minutes before we were going to do an ayahuasca ceremony. He said, I haven't finished. It would be really bad if you left right now. This is getting translated because he speaks Spanish. It would be really bad if you left right now. And I just, if you can stay, I'm working really hard to clear this energy from you. You have a little bit more to go. You're going to have to do a little bit more. And I thought I could see the sincerity in his face. I knew that he was very serious. And he also said, I almost pulled you out of training because this healing is bigger than what I thought it was going to be, and it's harder. But and I wanted to tell you, and he said, I wanted to tell you what it was, but I'm not going to, because it will just mess things up for your head, and I need you to just release everything. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll stick with it. Anyway, so things progressed. That next week, I was still quite, I had this real anger and kind of really feeling of like a teenager that just didn't get its way. It was very inner child stuff. And I was really frustrated. I was like, oh, I just said I was going to stay and I don't want to stay. And then I really remembered what some of my past big energy releases were like, and how I really just resisted it beforehand and didn't want to go and got angry. And I remember even sometimes when the shaman had come to my bed, I just wanted to scream at him and say, go away. And I thought, maybe this does mean that I'm getting really close to releasing it. And he also said to me, this third and fourth spiritual body that's holding this toxicity, it's from a past life. It's really toxic. It has to come up through your body. Like, it has to come up through your first and second, and it has to come out physically. And I thought, oh, okay, that doesn't sound very pleasant, but okay. Anyway, so he asked me to do an ayahuasca ceremony in my bungalow by myself. Now, that's part of training. So I just want to also put a caveat here and say, I've had a lot of experience with ayahuasca, and in training, you are asked to do some very, big stuff. And doing ayahuasca by yourself is not recommended for anyone who hasn't ever dealt with it before. So this to me wasn't, I had already done a few by myself in the bungalow there already. But he was basically saying, this is the night. I think it's going to come out. I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't really know what I was getting rid of. So I kind of started my ceremony, and I still had this kind of not resentment. It wasn't anger. It wasn't much as anger, but it was kind of like, no, here we go again, right? When I started to just do little spits and little spits of purging. Anyway, there came a moment in the ceremony when the medicine had kicked in. And I'm telling you this because I feel it's really important for you to understand all the different things that go on in your mind when you're stepping into this world. Not just, and when I say this world, I mean whether it's psychedelics, whether it's healing, whether it's certain plant medicines that you're having, whether it's instructions from someone to do something because you need to do it. There's so much resistance, right? There's so much control going on in here. Why am I doing this? This seems dumb. I don't know. I'm sick of doing this. Is this ever going to finish? It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. And then there's the part of you that knows better. And thankfully, my soul and my guides were helping me just to sit with it and trust the process. And again, why I'm sharing this is because the most important part is to when you're doing, especially psychedelics, people will say, you got to surrender, and I don't find that a really helpful word, because surrender to me doesn't feel like it's something I would do. So I think changing that to just trusting that you don't know what's good for you in this particular sense, that something bigger is trying to help you here, and you don't want to get in the way of that. And that's what was happening here. So I was sitting there like a, spoiled brat who'd had enough, and I just wanted to just finish with my medicine. And I've had my medicine, and I'm literally sitting on the floor in the bungalow, pitch black in the middle of the jungle with my bucket ready to go, little candle if I needed it. And and it started. And like I said, I was doing small purges, and I'm like, oh, here we go with the small purges again. And then I was asked, what are you prepared to do? Because all these kind of entities came up in my face again, and I was actually really bored with them. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen you guys before. And then I started getting shifting my frustration to how many entities and just really awful energies are out in the world. And I was taken to kind of really seeing that the less humans know about it, the better for them, right? I could see how we as a society there's so many people, oh, I don't believe in that stuff, or we just don't understand it. And I was able to see how much damage these entities and energies and bad energies that are influencing people in such not only a broad scale, but also on the small stuff. Because what people don't understand is it's not dark and light. It's all the gray too. It's all the in between. Evil, really, really horrible evil can be really obvious, right? We can all point at it and go, that's evil. Just like really, really beautiful love, light is really obvious too. We can go, wow. But it's the stuff in between. It's stuff here that we don't realize can be so influential to us on a day-to-day basis, to different people in different ways, in different scenarios. And it's this that can just stop us from being the best version of ourselves. It's these little influences. If we don't clean our energy and keep our energy clean, and I'll talk more about that later, but if we don't prepare our space, if we don't clean our house energetically and our bodies energetically, then that little influence just chips away at us, and it chips away at our weaknesses. And our weaknesses might be our self-confidence. It might be when we look in the mirror. It might be what we feel about our bodies. It might be how confident we are at work. It might be that we're feeling terrible and lonely. And those influences will just keep whispering in our ear if we don't know how to remove them and how to raise the frequencies and the vibrations of the place that we're in, of the life that we're living, no matter where we are. I could see that was just so important. And it really nearly brought me to tears, in the sense that, I mean, I didn't have time, to be honest, because I was about to have this big release. But in that moment, I was asked, are you prepared to fight them? And I was like, absolutely. Like I'll do whatever it takes. And I didn't realize I was stepping up to the plate in that moment, because I was feeling quite kind of exhausted. And as I said that, it was kind of like, okay, good, we're ready to get rid of this toxic energy then. Because I moved myself into a space of, yes, I get it. I get that energy is this world. Energy is us. We all need to keep, I guess, really, forefront of our minds. What is the energy that we are in? What is the energy that we are speaking in our space? What is the energy that we're having with our children, in our relationships, in our workspace? Because that affects us all the time. What is the music that we're listening to? Anyway, so this happened. There was this huge shift in my consciousness. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Of course I want to help, because I have this, such an experience with what they look like and how they work. I need to share that, and I need to help people. Anyway, so that happened. And then all of a sudden, the biggest, I don't want to describe it to you visually, because it was really, really awful. And obviously, just as I'm bringing it up, it comes back to me. But the purging that I had, it was like someone was pulling a really big, twisted, awful rope. But the rope was like tar and awful. It was so toxic. I don't even know what it was. I just know it was toxic. And it just kept going and going and going. And it was like it was pulling it from somewhere deep past me. And it kept going and going and going. And the worst part of it was that it was filled with fractured and tortured and awful kind of remnants of souls of some awful, hideous, extreme pain and suffering and craziness. that had happened in some place that was somehow attached to me. It went on for, I mean, probably time-wise, I don't know, but it was longer than I was able to breathe, and yet I still didn't need to take a breath. It was very mystical in the sense that while I'm doing this, and I can see this visually, I knew it was energetic. There was literally nothing in my bucket. So, I mean, I was just kind of spitting a lot because I could actually taste the toxicity of death and torture. And this craziness of these poor fractured souls that had been trapped in my being in this whatever lifetime that I had done whatever it was that I did. Anyway, I certainly never thought that I would be sharing this publicly, but I just feel it's really necessary. So that happened, and I sat there for a minute or more. I had tears streaming down my face from what I had just seen and experienced. And I was like, I was looking up, ayahuasca was there, and I'm like, what the absolute, like, seriously, what was that? I couldn't believe, like, who was I? Who was I in a past life to have done something so awful? And she just said, but you just released them. She's very present moment. She's like, there's no point in shaming yourself over something in a past life. We have all been perpetrators. We have all been oppressors. We have all been the opposite of what we are now. That's just how it is. We have all experienced the opposite. And you just release them. So let's just look at that, because there's a lot of that kind of stuff getting around that people aren't healing. Anyway, so I sat with that. Of course, I was still trying to beat myself up because, I'm still human, and I couldn't even relate it, but I'm still very deeply in the medicine. And a few things went on for a little bit longer. Like, I still had a little bit of purging to go and toxicity and things like that to come out. It wasn't a pleasant night, but there was this kind of strange relief of lightness, of real lightness. And I have to admit, when he said toxicity, I wasn't thinking that. I thought, maybe I was just really unhealthy, or maybe, I think of toxicity as, well, I did, I don't anymore. Physical toxicity. And I know that I had, in this life, I have definitely not treated myself well. So I did not think in that level of toxicity. It took me a couple of days before I could even really put words to anything to explain to one of the support people there, and try and put words to it. It was very challenging. I had a lot of flashbacks of what I'd seen. But the next time I saw Maestro, which was only a couple of days afterwards, he immediately could see. He looked at me, and then he did a diagnostic, and he was really pleased. And he said, "Congratulations, it's all gone." Now, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, cool, I can get on with it now, which it was. But I still didn't know what it was that I had healed from. And yeah, so I went on the next 5 weeks or whatever it was, the next 6 weeks, and got very well stuck into the training. He really ramped it up because he was like, well, you're good to go now. We don't have to be gentle with you. So it was a full-on 6 weeks of lots and lots of training. And when I say training, again, this is where, since I felt so different as well, the difference was I was able to resonate differently with people that had come. So there's people coming in and out of the retreat center the whole time that I was there, visiting from different parts of the world, which was amazing, with all different things, coming with all a range of reasons why they wanted to experience plant medicine. And not one single person ever rocked up there knowing what the reason was they had to be there. And I say that because even me coming in as, I want 3 months of training, had no idea what I was about to be healed from or how I was about to be free of the things that I was free of, the stuff that I didn't even know I was carrying around. Like, who knows that? I didn't. So I was learning so much about energy and, how to really clear energy, but not in the way that we think. Like energy, when I say energy, I'm not talking about I have energy today to go and do something. We're talking about the unseen part of us that represents who we have been, where we have been, what we have done. It represents the invisible world, and it's the bigness of us as well. It's where a lot of our parts of us are stored, our experiences, because the way I believe things is that our soul is obviously much bigger than our body. Like our soul is huge and capable and is, connected to the divine. And then we're squeezed into this little fleshy human suit to have our experience here on earth. And it's done it many, many times, and brings with it the lessons that we need to learn again with the baggage that we created from past lives that we need to disperse, or, as some would say, with karma, get rid of and balance. And then there's the part of us that needs to be cleansed all the time. So we have portals. So energy is always moving, right? So if we don't keep it free flowing, if we don't keep that energy in our body free flowing all the time, and it starts to stagnate and block up with negative things, or, transference from the food that we're eating, or not exercising enough, or whatever, being in a toxic situation, whether it's being in a toxic relationship or a toxic workspace, all the debris that we pick up from other people, if we don't clean that off, then that's going to have consequences, because it will start to block our system. A little bit like a pool cleaner, that all the leaves get clogged up in the system. It's not going to be able to keep going, right? So that's the image that you can kind of have of yourself, with little holes in different spaces that we need to keep filtering and keep the energy clear. And you will feel completely different when those filters have been cleaned. And the filters can get damaged from a whole range of reasons. And that's when, problems start to occur physically. So let me get to the end of the story, because I don't want to make this an entirely huge video. So the part that kind of really made me sit back and wonder, wow, what are we doing in this? What are we doing in this world as humans? We have so much more to learn. So I get to my graduation night, which was the Saturday night, and I was part of the ceremony, and it was amazing. And, it was incredible. The things that Maestro had taught me, I faced my fear of singing in front of a crowd, which was crazy. And I faced many fears, actually. And I was really, really happy. But the interesting part was his final talk with me was that he explained exactly what it was that had happened. And he was saying that it was very difficult. So I had been, when I first came in, he said, in many, many lifetimes, you have been a maestro, or like himself, like a healer, or a shaman in different spaces. And generally when that happens, you are going to get cursed in different ways. You're going to have different things sent to you, because if you're a good shaman working for the light, then usually the dark energies try and stop you in different ways, and nearly every single time you've been taken out. So that was interesting. He said, we fixed all of that. We've reversed all of those. The other thing was that my great-grandmother, she's an Aboriginal woman. She was back in the 1800s now. I've figured out the timeline. And she was a medicine woman, and she had been cursed. Now, she actually visited Herberto and explained to him what to do about that curse. It had already been worked on previously. So I already knew coming in that I had this curse from something that she had done many, 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 many years ago, and how it was affecting me, how it was stopping me from going forward. And there was like 3 different people that had already told me that those 3 people knew nothing of each other, and they didn't know anything about kind of Aboriginal history and things like that, or that was in my family. So it was very interesting. And then obviously Herberto brings it up, this shaman in Peru, he certainly didn't know anything about my heritage. And he said, oh, yes, your grandmother has come and shown me how to fix the curse. Curses are tricky. Like I said, I think I need to do a whole other video on the difference between curses and sorcery and black magic and all those kinds of things, because they're all quite different. Anyway, so I thought, well, that's quite a handful and that's enough to fix. And then he said, well, actually the toxicity was actually cancerous energy. You were about 3 months off being irreversible. And I had cancer in my uterus and breast cancer. He said that's an energy that forms from toxicity. He knows cancer energy very, very well. He's worked with it a lot. But they can take on different forms depending on where they've come through, whether it's this lifetime, previous lifetimes, and then also connected to whatever is happening in this lifetime. So the fact that I was quite toxic, I drank a lot previously in my younger days, that would all trigger, anything to do with those kinds of energies. And then, of course, the connection of where the cancer comes through. So, I had absolutely zero self-love. I didn't value myself at all. And breast cancer has often been aligned to self-nurturing, self-love, giving too much of yourself and to other people and not to yourself. So that was really, really powerful when he said that to me, and it really resonated with the last 10 years of what I've been learning as I've been healing myself, regardless of my last 50 odd years of being on the planet, when I certainly haven't experienced self-love at all. And then cancer in the uterus I've had a lot of sexual trauma in my past, and I had always kind of felt like something wasn't quite right. So it was so amazing when he said that. It was like all these things just fell into place about the history of my health, the history of my healing, my life over the last, 40-something years, 50-something years. And I just sat there just amazed, totally amazed. Yeah, it was a big deal to learn that, I was a few months off having to have it physically and go through, whatever system of having it taken out of my body. And yet I was guided to get to this retreat at a certain time. It was a very profound way that I got there during that time, which is a whole other story. And then not only that, the rash that I told you about that had come up previously, he had looked at that before and he said, yeah, I know what that is. That will be gone before you go. And the rash was the cancerous energy, still being angry that it wanted to come out, and the toxicity still wanting to come out, and then retreating and going away, which it completely left a few days after that. Yeah, so I know that, people might have a whole bunch of different things to think about that, and that's okay. This is my story. This is what happened to me, and this is how it's changed my life, because of the respect, not only that the respect that I have for Maestro Herberto is off the charts. I don't know a more humble man that has the most incredible abilities. And this isn't an ad for him, it's just, the way he has the way he works and the way he works with people and the way he's so gentle and yet direct about these things, that it's just so obvious to him, because energy is energy and we all come with our baggage and we all just need to keep it clean. He's very simple about it. Even for him, telling me that it was cancerous energy was kind of a no big deal. He was kind of like, well, it was cancerous, but it's gone now, so it's good. Now, please don't misunderstand and misrepresent my words. I'm not suggesting that he cured me of cancer, because even he says once it gets to the point where it's in your body, it's a whole different story. That's different. He was changing the energy of what I had before it got there. Okay, that's different. And what was really interesting was that he made me take a big part in it, which is what I think for us as Westerners can be difficult, can be challenging, because we are used to going to someone and saying, what can you do to fix me? Give me the thing, and now I go away and I've done it. Whereas he does a lot. He does a lot of work. But you have to play your part too. I had to come to terms with what I had learned about myself and my past lives and the things that obviously happened. I had to go through that process of chipping away at the energy and getting frustrated and wanting to stop and wanting to quit. I had to face all my fears. I had to surrender, even though I said I didn't like that word. I had to kind of say, okay, maybe I don't know what's going on here, and this is a bigger part of me, and I need to do this. And yes, I did, because otherwise it was obviously a much worse result. I could have left and he wouldn't have been able to finish, and that would have been a really tragic change of the story. So what I learned, so there was something else that I needed to add here. I did have a beautiful not my graduation ceremony, but I had another ceremony in between that, where the beautiful and amazing souls that had been released, all the fractured parts of them, came to visit me and celebrated in front of me. And it was so beautiful. I didn't know who they were. I was wondering why they were. I'm in a psychedelic, I've taken ayahuasca and I'm in the ceremony and I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, who are all these people that are clapping in front of me and cheering in front of me? And then I realized they were like, we are all the reunited families from what had been obviously a horrible situation that I don't really want to know about. And I don't need to know about, that had been reunited with their families, and obviously then able to heal on a soul level in whatever dimension that is. So look, if you have thoughts, I would love to hear them. If I'm talking on different levels that are hard to kind of imagine what that means, please feel free to communicate with me. Like I said, I can only say what I know to be true for me and my experience. I have, like I said, I have experienced a lot of different things with ayahuasca and other medicines, and had a lot of teachers showing me that, and when I say teachers, I mean teachers in, the spirit world as well, showing me the reason why things have been really challenging for me. Because I very often have said, why is every bit of healing, it's just so huge and so dark and so heavy and so hard? And I always get the same thing back. And it's that because I need to teach this, I need to help people, I need to share my stories, and they need to be challenging and big and difficult for me to be able to learn and understand how it all works. Because what this taught me above all was that, this unseen world that so many of us don't want to believe in, it's easier, right? It's easier to just say, oh, I don't believe in that stuff, because then you feel like it's safer because you don't have to address it. I don't have to do more. I mean, who wants to do more, right? Here I am saying, oh, you got to be, cleanse your area and take care of your boundaries. And that feels like a lot of hard work to add more to your day. I get it. I'm exhausted too. but it's exhausting being sick. And that's what's happening to humanity, right? I mean, look around us. You don't have to go very far to have someone you love or someone you know dealing with some awful illness or sickness or being challenged to do things in a way that's incredibly difficult for them, having a breakdown, having a breakup. You know, I think we all need to do, if we did things just a little bit differently, right? Because obviously we're doing them the same and that's not helping. If we did things a little differently, by maybe acknowledging this energy that we have around us, that we connect with, that I can't deny is real. I just can't. Nobody could make me. From what I've seen, and it wasn't just my healing. There were many, many, many healings going on all the time through the 3 months that I was there. And this man doesn't take a holiday. He takes a week off for his birthday, and I think he still works during that. He goes to hospitals. He works remotely. He just did an incredible remote work with my husband, which is a whole another big story, because that's what I had. The energy that I was coming home to was very challenging, and I haven't even talked about that, but I think I need to do a part 2 maybe. So yeah, I feel like sharing that story was really important. I was a little bit like, oh my goodness, this just sounds, yeah, anyway, but it's my story, and it has definitely changed my life to know that I was so close to something, and yet now I have this complete different respect of my energy, of my body, my physical body. I feel like, now I'm 54, I feel like I really need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my energy all the time and teach other people how to do the same. That's what I really want to do. I really, really want to teach as many people as I can how to take care of themselves in a different way. I used to teach people how to take care of their health. And now I feel like I want to share how to take care of your energy body, because clearly that has a lot of stuff in it. Yeah, I feel like that might be a good place to finish this particular recording. I know I didn't even talk about integration, but maybe that could be the next one where I can share with you a little bit about integration, and not only why it's been challenging for me, but then also why it's so important, because that's the next thing. It was so challenging, but it actually made me realize why integration is so important and what it even means. Like, what does that even mean, integration? Yeah, so there's lots more to talk about. And there were so many other things that the jungle has taught me. That's why I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm leaving stuff out. But I feel like that's probably enough for today. And again, I'm sorry that we couldn't do this live, but I will definitely try again soon. Let me know what you think. And I have a good health now. I feel much, much better. And yeah, I am returning to the jungle in July. There's the actual dates and details are on the website, and I'll put them in the description in YouTube. For those of you who aren't, who are thinking maybe you'd like to come along, I'm going anyway. So it's not like it'd be great for you to come with the people that are coming, and we all have a little group, but that's, it'll get filled up no matter what. So yeah, because it is busy season, it is holiday season. So the maximum I think is 15 now. Pretty sure it's 15 people. So it doesn't get bigger than that, because it's a family run place. Herberto is only one person. His sister also does a lot of work there as well, and his auntie when she's there, but she's not always there. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your comments and your likes and your emails and your support. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your patience in letting me just take time to be ready to verbalize all of that. And yeah, I look forward to sharing so much more with you. I really do. Thank you so much. Bye.